Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people act all deserving and stuff, thinking they're special. And in today's episode, guys, a Karen makes a huge mistake by berating an employee and she regrets it big time. I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. This year, I was taking a university class, where I sat beside this one girl who never really talked to me aside from these interactions. So one day at our lecture break, I mentioned to my other classmate that I'm gonna run over to the coffee shop. And that's when the girl says, "Ugh, I'm starving. I wish I had eaten this morning." To which I say, "Oh, I'm going to the coffee shop. Do you want me to grab you something?" The girl says, "Oh my, would you? I'm so hungry." I say to her, "No problem. Do you want a muffin or something?" The girl says, "Actually, I want a breakfast sandwich with a hash brown, please, and a medium coffee." To which I say, "Sure thing." And she says, "I don't have any money though, so do you mind taking care of it this time?" Hearing her say that, I'm thinking how what she's ordering cost about $6.50, and I'm a little surprised that she doesn't offer to pay me next week. But I do agree, as I'm not cheap and I wouldn't mind paying if she genuinely didn't have the money. It also should be noted that, as the girl also knows, in order to get a breakfast sandwich, I have to go to a different coffee shop on campus. So I literally have to run across campus, wait in a significant line to get her the sandwich. So I get everything, run back to class, and I spill a lot of my coffee. But I'm doing my best to get back on time. I end up being about 10 minutes late to class, and I get a disapproving look from my professor. I give the girl the sandwich, and all I get is a smile, not even a thank you. So the following week, it comes to break, and I start bundling up to go get my coffee. Once again, the girl starts mumbling about how she didn't have breakfast, how hungry she is, blah blah blah. I tell her that I'll walk with her to the coffee shop if she wants to come. She then complains that she doesn't have any money again, to which I say that sucks, but if she comes with me, I'll buy her a coffee. And at that she says, coffee is not a meal, I want food. The following week, I come into class with a coffee and a muffin from my other classmate. She gives me some money and says thank you. The girl looks over at me, seemingly expecting me to have brought her something. I sort of give her a shrug, as if to suggest, "What do you want from me?" At that, she bitterly turns back to her computer and she says, "It must be nice to have something to eat in the morning. I'm hungry." My other classmate turns to her and says, "It is nice having something to eat." Yeah, so the post ends right there, guys. But at that point, I think OP should have looked at her and said, "Yeah, also getting paid for buying breakfast for you would be nice too." Like, I understand the college struggle, guys, I really do, but you're not someone else's responsibility. And also, coffee is considered a meal by many, many people. So she should have accepted that. So about a year ago, I ventured out and started my own handyman/home renovation business. So far, every interaction I've had with customers has been amazing, and most of my work now comes from referrals. On this one day, I had a request from Karen to come out to look at her bathroom that needed work done. From our conversation, she seemed like a nice lady, so I was happy to do so and fit her in last minute, as she expressed that she believed it was an emergency. So I arrive at her house today, and she was initially very pleasant. She was a white lady, probably in her 50s. She made small talk about my day so far, and being thankful that I was able to get to her so quickly. At this point, I still haven't seen any of the issues she told me about in person, and that's where I made my fatal mistake. The next part is the exact phrasing I said to her. I asked if she could take me to the master bathroom, so I could try to see what the issue was. Hearing me ask that, I noticed her facial expressions change almost instantly while I was saying that sentence, and then she loses it on me. She begins to yell at me, saying, "How dare I call it a master bathroom?" And then she lectured me for a solid 2 minutes about how I was essentially a terrible person and racist. At one point, she even said, "Wow, I had heard such great things about you, but clearly those were false. I have absolutely no interest in having someone with your mentality work on my house. Get out right now." So far up to this point, I had not been given the opportunity to say anything, essentially. So I begin to apologize and attempt to de-escalate the situation. I even point to my leg, which has a very visible coexist tattoo. However, this woman is having none of it. She tells me to leave her house right now and that she'll be telling everyone she knows not to hire me, because again, I'm such a horrible person. I apologize one last time and then head out. I hear her slam the door behind me while muttering something. I just get in my truck and start to drive away. And as I'm leaving, I see the door open and she comes outside. Now, I have no idea if it was for me or if she just walked outside for something else, but I wasn't stopping to find out. Now I'm sitting here worrying about the potential ramifications from this on my business, which will be amazing to have in my daily anxiety rotation. Yeah, this is one of the more absurd, head-shaking posts that was shared with me, guys. And honestly, I wouldn't worry about her negative review anyway, because people are gonna see right through her craziness. 1 star. This man is horribly racist. In 2023, he decided to use the term master bathroom to refer to the main bathroom in my house. Avoid this man. Like, geez Louise, Karen, I'm so curious to know what she thinks about master locks, master's degrees, master cylinders in cars. And oh boy, don't even tell her that computers have a master and slave drive. Her head might explode, guys. So growing up, I struggled a lot with math. I just couldn't make it work. And as a result, I was often called stupid, useless, and the infamous R word by my tutors. And often I was locked in a room by myself during math class, so they didn't have to deal with me from 1st to 10th grade. Now obviously this had a negative effect on me. Hearing that word instantly throws me back to those horrible years and how I was treated. I was diagnosed with dyscalculia or math dyslexia when I was 24 years old. I'm 27 now. This incident happened in December. For some context, the entitled lady that called me the R word had been a regular customer for a long time. Long before I even started working at the store 3 years ago, but it was only about 2 years ago that she started to treat me the way that she did. The woman was always a bit grumpy and rude, but nothing unusual. We live in a small town where everyone knows each other's business, and about 2 years ago, I was falsely accused of stealing money from our elderly neighbor by her relatives, which turned out to be a lie. The elderly lady, who, let's call her Mary, who's passed away, was an old family friend of ours. In a way, she was like a third grandmother to me, as she was a close friend of my maternal grandmother, and she celebrated birthdays and Christmases with us. She lended me a small sum of money so I could pay off some debts, and by the time these accusations made its way around town, I had paid the amount back. But Karen is one of those who judges you despite having all the facts. She decided to go from disliking me to absolutely hating me in the matter of a day. One day after these rumors began to spread, she began to become extremely agitated if I asked her if she wanted a receipt. She would roll her eyes and snap, "Of course, I'm a regular here and you know I always want my receipt when it comes to the likes of you." Now I did know that, however, it's store policy to ask if they want a receipt, as it's in all the stores. She's also cussed me out for being too kind, and she reported me to my boss for not taking my job seriously enough. I did take it seriously. She would also not acknowledge me at all, even if I said hello to her at the store. She would keep her head down and avoided the area I was in at the store. Not that it bothered me that much. In fact, I found it a bit amusing that my mere existence would trigger someone so bad for no legitimate reason whatsoever. Until this December. So December is a busy month for our little grocery store, the only one out of 2 in town. And of course, it was a hectic day with a lot of customers. I'd already been at work for a few hours when Karen comes through the checkout. So I process her groceries, and at the end of the transaction, I ask her if she wants the receipt, and this is how it went down this time. I ask her, "Would you like the receipt, ma'am?" Karen then looks at me dead in the eye and says, "I have a question for you." I ask her, yes, ma'am?" Karen says, "Are you just so stupidly dense, or are you completely insert R word?" Now hearing her say that, I was so stunned that I just stared at her for a moment. Before I could react, this sweet old lady snapped at her and says, "How dare you say that to her?" Karen says, "I'm a regular at this store. She should remember who I am and my needs. How many times does she have to ask me if I need a receipt?" The old lady says, "It doesn't matter if you're a regular. It's her job to ask. It's not her job to be spoken to like that." Karen says, "I don't trust her. She's useless." So by now, I was on the verge of tears, and that's when I excused myself and called for my coworker, leaving the checkout to go hide in the break room, where I instantly break down in tears. 15 minutes or so later, my manager comes into the break room. I tell her my side of the story and how Karen's behaved towards me. She then tells me to take the day off to calm down, and she would find someone to cover my shift and to not worry about the entitled lady. It was my last shift of the year, so I didn't hear what happened until I came into work a few days ago. I was told that she had been banned from the store. The sweet old lady, plus a bunch of other witnesses in line, had testified to my manager about her outburst, and they were enraged. This allowed the manager to go to higher ranks to have the woman banned indefinitely. The other grocery store up the street from us caught wind of the incident, and they decided to ban her as well. She now has to leave town, and she has to drive for an hour to the next town to get to a grocery store. Guys, talk about instant karma. I'm smiling so hard because it's rare that you see a rude, smug Karen getting what they deserve. And just knowing that for as long as she lives in that town, she can't set foot in the only 2 grocery stores makes me happy. What a super satisfying story. A few months ago, I was looking for a job. I spent most of my day walking downtown for interviews. At this point, I'm in a horrible mood. Most of the day is gone, nobody showed any interest, and I'm starving. It was one of those days that nothing goes right. After I was done, I chose to grab a bite to eat. I chose a big local chain of fast food as they make decent food with quite a low price. As I enter, the first thing I notice is it's kind of full, but the register was empty. I sighed, as that usually means they have a lot of orders in the back, and my food would be kind of late. So I walk in there and the employees were giggling on their phone. One of them glances at me and says, "One moment." Alright, I have no problem with that. So I wait and wait and wait. At some point, I look at the clock behind them and I was waiting awkwardly in front of 2 giggling teenagers for 5 minutes. I decided not to make a big deal out of it, so I politely clear my throat and ask if they're gonna take my order. The same teen rolls her eyes at me, evidently very annoyed that I interrupted them. The irritation of the day starts creeping out, but as I've worked retail most of my life, I hold it in. And she says to me, "What do you want?" in a very rude manner. At this point, I'm quite sure I have a vein popping out, but I swallow my temper and order my food. I order 2 small burgers and a cola, totaling something around $5. She then rolls her eyes again and says, "Wow, we're spending big bucks today, aren't we?" She said that in the most condescending, annoyingly bratty voice that you can imagine. At this point, I just shrugged my shoulders. My mouth was refusing to make the remarks that my brain was screaming at me. I then move on into a corner of one of those tall bar tables on the side to wait for my order. I then take out my small notebook to write some notes on the last interview. As I'm minding my own business, a wild, entitled Karen encroaches my personal space. The woman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, are you listening to me? I'm speaking to you." At that, I turn around and I'm like, "What?" The Karen then says to me, "Are you gonna take our order now, or are you gonna keep pretending to work? I've been watching you for like 5 minutes. I then blinked, and then it hit me. She thought I was an employee. Of course, my shirt was a different shade than the store uniform, and mine lacked the store logo and the name tag. Not to mention I had a big leather bag hanging from my side. But my years of experience taught me that Karen cells can't coexist with brain cells. At this point, I tried to tell her that I don't work here, and that she must go to the register. Now, something to point out here is the way the ordering works in this franchise is you go to the register, make your order, pay, and the server will bring it to you. The woman keeps demanding that I take her order or she's gonna get the manager. So after a while of demanding I take her order and being berated and called useless, I said, "Screw this," and I complied with her wishes. So I take her order. I say to her, "All right, ma'am, where's your table?" She then points at the 5 Karen table and I nod, and I say I'll be right there. Not before she throws in this line. She says to me, "You effing kids, All you know is how to avoid working. You should get fired for being so damn lazy." She says that as she leaves. Now I'm 30 years old, and today I would not have it. I was hungry, in a horrible mood, and the years of self-discipline were crumbling as I was hungry for blood. I then went to the entitled Karen's table that consisted of not one, not two, but 6 whole Karens. I then put on my biggest, fakest smile and I take their order. I even suggested a few non-existent dishes while ghostwriting in my notebook. I then pointed out that it was a pretty big order and it's gonna take a while, about a 20-minute wait. I then left the Nightmare Karen table and went back into a corner and waited for my order in a far better mood. While waiting, I can hear them complaining that staff here are so damn lazy. At this point, I just start grinning. She had a chance to fully undo my master plan and she failed to grasp it. I wait 5 more minutes for my order, take it, and leave a happy man. I can only imagine the Karens trying to reorder the non-existent dishes I recommended after 20 to 30 minutes of not getting their order, only to be constantly told that they don't exist. Essentially, I played an angry mob of Karens into fighting against some very rude employees, while I made a getaway with my prize booty of calories, fat, and ice-cold vengeance. Granted, after calming down a bit, I did feel kind of bad for feeding those employees to the Karen sharks, but I was caught in the moment. Honestly guys, I don't think OP should feel bad at all. Like, there's never an excuse for that kind of behavior towards a customer at all. Saying things like, "What do you want?" or "Oh, he's a big spender with $5. I'd be pretty upset too if someone said that to me. With that said though guys, it was a brilliant little petty revenge / malicious compliance / I don't work here lady post from OP. Loved it. Alright, so I'm an Asian guy that works in a nail salon in a mall. On Wednesday, I had an incident with a nasty Karen. I was greeting her, and she told me that she wanted a gel manicure. For anyone that doesn't know, you have to use a UV/LED light to cure the gel to dry, and it takes like 30 to 60 seconds to dry. When I sat her down, she's already giving me attitude, sitting far from my table with her hands out of reach. I told her, "You can sit closer to the table so you don't have to reach." She then got annoyed when I said that to her. When I started doing her hands, she looked at it every few seconds, shaking her head. In my head, I'm thinking, maybe she's just a picky client, and I should have stuck to my gut feeling that she's just here to get a free gel manicure. But I give her the benefit of the doubt and continue. In my salon, if a client's too picky and you think you can't handle it, you can ask the manager to switch to someone else. But if no one can handle it, the manager will ask them to leave. Because in the end, you'll just waste your time and the client will just want a free service or services. So when I finished painting the gel-based coat on her first hand, I told her to put her hand in the light, but she only puts it like halfway in. So I tell her, "You have to put your hand in a little more so the gel can be cured and dried." But she refused and says, "I don't want to put my hand all the way in." So I explained to her and say, "If you don't do it that way, it won't be dry." She then told me, "I've done this 1,000 times. I know what I'm doing." To which I say, every gel light's different. You have to follow my instructions as these lights are placed further in. So I show her, and I place her hand a little bit more inside the light and told her to leave her hand like that until the light turns off. It only needs to be 1 time, but she kept doing it like 3 to 4 times in short bursts. After that, I told her to switch her hand, but she pretended she didn't hear me, until I asked her the 3rd time, and that's when she raised her voice and says, "I have to make a phone call." She then called someone on the phone and she told them I didn't give him permission to touch me, and he forced my hand into the light. At that I say, excuse me, miss, I didn't force your hand. I placed it in the light a little bit more so the gel can dry." Karen looks at me and says, "I don't want to talk to you. The conversation's over." After that, she asked to speak to the manager. She asked the manager to see the camera footage, claiming that I assaulted her, but the manager told her that only authorities or the police are allowed to see it. Karen then says, "Then I'll call the police." The manager told her to do that, and he called the police as well. She then stands up and walks to the door. I follow her but keep my distance because she didn't pay for her service yet. She then told the police on the phone that she didn't feel safe in the salon because me and the manager were looking at her weird, so she has to stay outside to wait for them. When a policeman came, she told him that I forced her hand into the light, and she wants to press charges for assault. He takes down a report, and I told him you can't let her go because she didn't pay for her service yet. He said, don't worry, she's not going anywhere. And then I told him my side of the story. Thankfully, my coworker was working on a client at the time, and they sat like 6 feet away, so they heard the whole conversation with Karen. When I asked them to be my witness, saying that Karen told the police that I assaulted her, they were shocked, and they told the police what really happened. At that point, another policeman arrived, and they went to check the camera footage. Long story short, they saw that she made up the lies. My manager told me later that the policeman went and talked to her, and she screamed at them and caused another huge scene. She never did come back to pay for the nails. I was so angry that the policeman let Karen get away without paying for her full service. Despite false accusations, she faced no consequences. Silly Karens, right? Always making up excuses to not pay. Like, it sounds to me like she went in there looking to get free services that day by being a total B and complaining about everything. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance, where a Karen harasses OP, who happens to be a cop, and she regrets it big time. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.